Well, hello. Here I am sitting in my office. It's Friday, September 29th, and this is World FTD Awareness Week. And I've posted quite a few things online about FTD this week, and I've seen a lot of things posted, shared a lot of things. I think we probably should do this every day, not just a week of a year. However, that's another story. But I thought today that I would sit here with my no makeup, just the way I always am, just dropped my twins off. And if you don't know who the twins are, my 95-year-old mother lives with us and she has vascular dementia. And my husband is 65 and he has FTD, frontotemporal degeneration, or dementia, or FTLD. They don't even know what to call it. So, and they certainly don't know much about it. And I affectionately call them the twins. And today they are at their day program so that I can have a little bit of time to decompress. But my husband has bvFTD, which is behavioral variant, and that sort of gives it away that it has to do with behavior. So I have not really written my story. I get everybody else's stories, and I'm an advocate, and I'm out there yelling about things, and I thought I'd just tell you the raw truth about bvFTD. No special effects, no nice camera, just my crappy iPad, and no sound, no mournful music in the background, no good camera work, just me holding a shaky iPad. I'm going to tell you what FTD is. I've been married to my husband for almost 20 years now, and someone asked us, we spoke at the med school for Emory a couple of weeks ago, and one of the questions at the end was, what was he like before FTD? And I thought, that's really a good question. And so I'm going to tell you a little bit about that. He and I were married when I was 49. He was 45. And he was just the happiest person. He laughed a lot. He read voraciously. He had a photographic memory when he read. He could quote you 2 months or 2 years later that on page 43 so and so said such and such, and he could fly through a book in days. He just loved to read. He was completely and totally, I would say, completely and totally in love with me. It showed every minute of his life. And all my friends were saying, does he have brothers? Because here was this man that cleaned house for me and with me, and would cook dinner if I was home later than he was, and did these extravagantly romantic things for me, and that took a lot of thought and a lot of processing, and then about at least 7 years ago, because we're about 2 years into diagnosis, about 7 years ago, I noticed distinct changes, and he was just becoming angry at things that he really never would have been angry at before. Although he had a little bit temper, it wasn't malicious, and suddenly it was becoming malicious, and he would say things to people that I would go, what are you doing? And it just seemed to progress. And my parents moved up to where we lived, and that was a pretty intense time. They were moving into a residential facility that was sort of independent. My mom had to have a pacemaker. My dad was sicker than we ever knew he was until he moved here. And and we got him some decent medical care, and he passed away 2 months after he was here, and a month after they went into the retirement place they were. And my mom stayed there for another year and a half, but then she had to move here because she was having strokes and mini strokes and was getting some dementia. So she had moved in with us, and I thought, well, the strain of all that, and maybe he's just uptight and he's pushing. He was, his 50s, and you get to that I want to retire thing, and so I just kind of kept putting it off as everything else, and not really thinking that anything was wrong. I just thought it was something weird going on, and it got progressively worse. And he would always come home and have a beer after work, and all of a sudden it was 2 beers or 3 beers, and I bought him a Kindle because he loved to read, and I got tired of dusting all the books, and so I bought him a Kindle, and instead of downloading books, he did it first, but then all of a sudden he was playing free online poker to excess, and would come home from work and be obsessed about it, and just had to get on, and would drink several beers, and was starting to speak to me in a way that I was not happy with at all. And I just couldn't put it together. I couldn't figure out what was happening. And he was so obsessed over the Kindle and all, and the poker and so forth. And then I was getting annoyed. And so my mother and I decided to go on her bucket trips. So we went up to Chicago, and then we went to Florida, and then we went to New England. She had never been to New York City. So I was gone a lot. And the first time I was gone to Chicago, actually right before we left for Chicago, we had a travel trailer, and we would go camping a lot. And he spent the 4th of July just intently on his phone, not the Kindle, the phone, and something was wrong. So Mom and I went off to Chicago. He spent much more money than anyone needed to spend in a week's time while I was gone, and never explained it sufficiently. And then I couldn't do much about it. We went to Florida, and then we had this big trip that was almost 3 weeks up to New England, and we went to Vermont and Maine and New York City. So I was pretty intensely traveling. Between the Florida trip and the big trip, it was bad. It was August. It was bad. And one night I picked up the phone to try to figure out what was going on exactly. And as I held the phone, a text came through. And it said, "I love you, handsome." And my world stopped. This wasn't my husband. No one would have believed this if I told them. And I didn't know what to do. It was so foreign to me. So I thought, well, I'll sleep on this and figure out who this is in the morning and look more into this then. Well, I lay down. He had gone to bed early, obviously. That's why I was sneaking in his phone. And I lay down, and I literally couldn't breathe. I honestly thought I was going to have a heart attack. And he turned to me and said, "What's wrong?" And that voice that I began to hate. And I just blurted out, "Who is this person, and do you want a divorce?" And he did not have the reaction I thought. He was like, "No, I don't want a divorce. What are you talking about?" Blah. And so I pressed him a little bit, and details are not important, I guess, but it was so uncharacteristic. And I said, "You either stop this or I'm gone." And he did. He completely, totally stopped it. I looked at our cell bills to look at what was going on. There was nothing. He wasn't using, I said, you have to open up everything to me. I have to know everything you're doing. Blah, 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 blah. Well, I went and got help. I went to a therapist and I said, you have to go to the therapist because something's wrong. And he went to this buffoon who was awful. I went to a therapist. I was explaining what was happening and how uncharacteristic everything was and how his temper had gotten so bad and how he was drinking, and I just couldn't figure it out. He eventually came to the therapist with me, and I could see he was like really trying, but nothing was working. And it was just becoming unbearable. And a year we did that. We did that a year, and I said, "That's it." To myself, "That's it. This isn't going anywhere. I've got to get out of this." And I started saving money and looking for a way for Mom and I to leave the situation because I could just see it wasn't going anywhere. And in October, that was 2015, October of 2015, I had been on caregiving.com because I was caring for my mom, and there were a lot of people caring for their parents and their spouses and so forth, and they had a lot of good ideas, and so I would chat with people, and someone in one of my chat rooms posted the AFTD video, It Is What It Is, and I watched it, and Rod's mother had pics, and the family had always said, well, it's like Alzheimer's, and by the time I met her, it looked like Alzheimer's. She was not speaking and was living in assisted living, and so I didn't know any different, and I saw this video, and my world stopped. Just stopped. I was like, Rod has this FTD that they used to call PICS. And I read everything I could about it and saw that it was highly misdiagnosed. And so I made an appointment with Emory here in Atlanta because I didn't want to be misdiagnosed. I knew getting him in there was going to be a challenge, and I wanted it right the first time. And I wanted to know, because if it wasn't this, then I was gone. So I made the appointment in October for May, 7 months later. I said, do you have a waiting list? And they were like, yes, it's pretty long. So I said, all right, well, whatever. And then it got worse. It just got worse and worse. And I said, in November at Thanksgiving, he had a really, really, really bad episode, and it was horrible. It was just horrible. And I came back after Thanksgiving, and I called Emory and said, I don't know what to do. I said, he's going to lose his job. He was 62, and I said, he's going to lose his job. I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. You're going to have to refer me somewhere that knows FTD and can give me some kind of diagnosis. And I was pretty spaced out at that time. And lo and behold, they called me and said they would try to do what they could. And I thought, yeah, well, probably they'll get us in March instead of May. And she called me back and said, we have a cancellation. Can you be here December 1st? Which was like that Monday. And I was like, you bet, I'm there. 8 o'clock, Monday morning. And I told Rod we were moved up and we were going. And we went in. And when we explained it all and he had the testing and so forth, Dr. Law at Emory said, this doesn't look good. And so it kind of confirmed what I thought. I had explained to him that we were now having to buy 2 boxes of Cheez-Its a week. Not 1, not 3. We had to buy 2. And he was eating them like crazy. And cookies were going through like nobody's business. And all of that together, he ordered an MRI, which came back normal. They did neuropsych testing, which wasn't normal. and they did a spinal tap to eliminate Alzheimer's. With his family history, it was pretty clear, I guess, to Dr. Law that this was probably bvFTD. And that's when we got the diagnosis. So what I want to say on this World FTD Awareness Week is it's not pretty. Pre-diagnosis is so ugly. He was turning into somebody that I didn't recognize, but I just didn't know why. And I couldn't put my finger on it. And I thought he was just becoming a big fat jerk. And he just changed. I mean, people change. But this was such a drastic change. I couldn't wrap my mind around it. And so I just couldn't even believe it. And so I know no doctors there probably aren't going to be any doctors that watch this. But this is such a painful journey, and doctors poo-poo you and tell you, well, it's Alzheimer's or all this or that, and because they don't know anything about FTD, and no one seems to be telling them about it. And I get frustrated and I become an advocate and I'm out there screaming about it all the time. But this is not Alzheimer's. This is not a gentle person forgetting where they lost their keys. This is somebody who turns into a monster. It's awful. And there are stories out there of people that are just in jeopardy. Their life is in danger from people with FTD, and they don't even know what's happening to them because nobody can give them an accurate diagnosis. So I'm mad. I'm mad that FTD is still, it was discovered before Alzheimer's. And here we are, no further along. Doctors know crap about this. So I want you to know that this is horrible. bvFTD is ugly, and no one wants to tell you about it. It's ugly. They turn into ugly people. They do things that are awful, and they say terrible things to you, and they demean you. Rod used to say my name like Sharon, and I just wanted to punch him in the face. So this is an ugly disease. And if you see your person changing and you can't explain it, run to a teaching hospital because they're the only people that know about it. And even they could screw it up. So please, during World FTD Awareness Week, let's just make that constant. 365 days a year. Tell people about this. Talk about it. Tell people it's ugly. Tell people what happens. I'm ranting. I know. I rant a lot about this. But we have to get the word out. This is killing people. In their 30s, there are people in their 30s with teeny tiny children who have turned into monsters. Okay. So I didn't have the makeup on, and I didn't have the fancy camera, and I didn't have the sad music. But I hope you get a picture of FTD because it's horrible. It is awful. And I hate FTD. And it took everything I thought I would be doing in my retirement away. It took it away. And Rod isn't Rod. And every day is a little worse. And if we don't get this message out, those of us that are doing it every day, if we don't tell people about this, lives are just destroyed every day. I'm begging you to share FTD. Share your story. Please help us help these people that have nowhere to go. They're not elderly. They don't have services for people that are 30 and are lashing out. and losing language and not able to tell us what's wrong. The services aren't there. Please help us. Please help us get the word out. Make FTD go away in our lifetime. Help us, please. Pass the word. This is World FTD Awareness Week 2017. And I hope one person changes their life because they heard me rant about FTD today.